Hey all, here are your answers to the unit test for the frogs and fleas. It's blue, so if you could pull that out, here are the correct answers. I'll try to make this relatively quick. I know it's kind of big. I'm going to go quickly through the first couple pages. Please come for help if you have difficulties with these. Here we go. So, number 1, the correct answer is 3t squared minus 6t plus 7. Letter B, there should be extra steps in here, and again, yours had a box. I don't know why. Mine had an H. I'm not sure why that happened. But remember to show your middle steps here. The correct answer should be 8h plus 2, or whatever variable you chose to use. Same is true with C, D, and F. C, D, E, and F. All of these you should be showing your work. Letter C is negative 4u minus 23. D is 2b squared plus 13b plus 15. E is m squared plus 2m minus 15. And F, a lot of you forgot your middle term. Remember, you need to rewrite this as r minus 4 so that you do not lose that middle term. And the correct answer should be r squared minus 8r plus 16. I know I did that quickly. Feel free to pause at any point if you need to. Okay, number 2, factor out the greatest common factor. Of these three terms, the greatest common factor is 3ab. Then you want to divide each of these by 3ab, and you should end up with b minus 4 plus 3a. And then you stop there. There's nothing more you can do with that. Okay, here's your factoring. For letter A, there is no GCF. It factors to k plus 10 times k plus 10, or you could write k plus 10 squared. Either one is fine. Again, show your work for these if you can. You need to do the work carefully. Be sure that you don't just write down the correct answer. Make sure that you do it yourself. Letter B is b minus 8 and b plus 3. Some of you had the signs backwards for that one, so be careful of that. Letter C on the next page is a plus 6, a minus 3. Again, watch your signs. D is 3x minus 2, x minus 1. E is a difference of two squares, so you get m plus 4, m minus 4. And F has a GCF first, so the 2 comes out first and leaves you with y squared minus y minus 12, and then you factor that to y minus 4, y plus 3. So if you have any difficulties with any of those, please let me know, because that's very, very important stuff that you need. Okay, number 4 was a fairly straightforward problem. You did very well with it for the most part. It should end up looking like this, and then you get points at 0 here. So let's see, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I put a 9 in just for fun. Something's wrong. That is 8. I've done something wrong. Can I fix that? I hope you caught that. This point here is incorrect, I believe. Ah, I skipped one, didn't I? So this goes here, and then the 8 is 0 there. Is that better? There we go. So these numbers should be 0, 7, 12, 15, 16, 15, 12, 7, 0. Continue it and draw the graph. Vertex would be 4, 16. And then it says, does it have a max or a min? It does have a maximum. There is no minimum. If you name the maximum is the maximum for the function. So yes, it is the vertex, but the actual maximum is 16. That is the biggest number that the function will be. So that is the maximum. It happens at x equals 4, but the maximum itself is 16. I did take off a half a point for that. It's a very, very minor point, so it's not a huge deal. There were a lot of points on this test. There were 96 points. So the half a point is not a huge deal. I just wanted to make a point of that vocabulary. The value for y when x is 6 should be 12. And the values for x when y is 0, those are your x-intercepts. So that would be 0 and 8. Some of you only had one of those, so make sure you have both of those. Now, number 5 was a problem that we've done several times. It should be in your notebook. Many of you had difficulty with it, and I was concerned because you should have recognized the problem and been able to find a similar problem and be able to do it. The other lengths of the sides in terms of L, so if the length is L, then the width would be 35 minus L. To show the work for that, you start with the perimeter, which is 70. You have 2 lengths and 2 widths. You need to solve for W in terms of L. So subtract 2L from both sides. and divide by 2 on both sides, and that should give you that answer. So I'm hoping that you can go back and find that in your notebooks, because that's a very important problem. Write the equation for area. As soon as you know that width is 35 minus L, then the area would be L times 35 minus L. And at this point, you should know what the graph looks like. It should be a parabola that goes through the origin. Many of you had it not going through the origin. Remember that it has to intersect with the origin, because the area would be 0 when when the L is 0. Find the area when the length is 10. So A is 10 times 35 minus 10, which is 250. And many of you forgot your units. Is this meters or feet? Meters. So it'd be meters squared. So be careful about those units. That is an important point. Okay, here we go to the next page. Here we are with your functions, trying to decide if they're linear, exponential, or quadratic. This one, I know that you wouldn't see this quickly, but I'm trying to do this fast, so this isn't a huge screen capture. These are all multiplied by 3. That makes it exponential. I'm not going to write all this. I'm going to say it to you. So if you need to go back and listen to it again before you write your explanation, feel free to do that. So it's exponential because each of the y values is multiplied by 3 by a constant. And so therefore the values would be 243 and 729. Some of you came up with the extra credit equation. It is y equals 3 to the x power. Next one. This is linear because a constant is added to the y value each time, plus 2 each time, and so therefore this is 13 and this is 15. And the extra credit equation is y equals 2x plus 5. The y-intercept is 5. Okay. Those should have been fairly straightforward. 8 is quadratic because, and here's the difficulty. A lot of you said because it goes up and comes back down again, you said that it must be quadratic. That's not good enough, because there are other functions, for example. What if one looked like this? If it looks like that, it goes up and comes back down again, but that's not quadratic. Obviously, it's not a parabola. So you need to be a little bit more specific with it. And what you need to do, remember when we did the sorting functions, what we did was we found the second order differences. So the first order differences, plus 5, plus 3, plus 1, minus 1, minus 3, minus 5. And then when you find the second order differences, these are all down 2. So as soon as the second order differences are constant, then you know it must be quadratic. Okay, so that's the best way of proving. Some of you said because it would be a parabola if you graphed it. How do you know that is my question. Difficult. That was a difficult question. Agreed. 9 is none of the above. And you need to say it does not increase by a constant. It's not, the y values are not multiplied by a constant. The second order differences are not constant. This is actually an inverse. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to give you the equation for the one above. I'll do that in just a second. But you see the pattern here. This is 1 over 7, 1 over 8. Most of you got that. This is actually an inverse relationship. And the equation is y equals 1 over x. But you needed to tell me why it was none of the above. This equation is y equals x parentheses 4 minus x. And that would be very difficult for you to come up with, so don't be concerned if you couldn't get that. That was extra credit. Okay, let's do the ship. Now, with this one, the first two were fairly straightforward. You simply had to substitute 4 and 10 in for t. You need to go, you see, you're late. And so therefore, show your work, and you would get d equals negative 6. A lot of you just stopped at that point and said d equals negative 6 feet. Not good enough. You need to answer the question. How deep was the water? And remember, my hint to you when we were talking about this was remember to read all of the problems. So remember when you go down here, it says when it's 72 feet deep, d is negative 72. Notice that when you talk about it, nobody says the depth of the water is negative 72. They say the depth is 72. But in the mathematical problem, it's indicated by a negative. So when you get that negative 6, you don't say negative 6 feet deep. It doesn't make any sense. People don't understand that. It's very odd. So what you would say is the water is 6 feet deep. So do you see the negative is in the actual algebra of the problem, but the answer to the question would not have the negative. It's just that the negative is indicated in the words. Does that make sense to you? I hope so. So again, same problem with this one. When you substitute, you should get d equals negative 10. And again, the water is 10 feet deep. The water is 10 feet deep. what would the depth be at 0 seconds? This was a tricky one. I wanted to know what this meant. So if the depth, if the anchor, let's see, what would the difference? Okay, so you plug in 0 for t, and d would end up being 10. Now that's positive. So it's positive. Does that mean it's down in the water? No. Negative is down in the water, so what would 10 be? 10 would be above the water. So what does that mean? It means the anchor, before it's dropped, I can't write very carefully, I'm really sorry. It is dropped, is 10 feet above the water on the ship. So do you see the difference between positive and negative? How would this show up on a graph? If the x is 0, then the y would be the y-intercept. It would be the y-intercept. So that was a tricky question. Granted, I'll give you that one. I agree. Now, if the water is 72 feet deep, so the d would be negative 72. So simply write it in the equation, and that's all you can do. You don't know how to solve that yet. We're doing that next week. Also, some of you be very careful because you lost that negative on the negative 4. Well, if you leave that out, you will get a wrong answer. So you have to be very careful that you copy carefully. Again, come see me if you have problems with that. Okay, it's the Super Bowl. Careful with the units here. Actually, this one went really well. Lots of you had really good idea what was going on. If the football traveled 40 feet, that is the horizontal distance, so that goes in for x. And when you put that in for x, and I will change that because that, oh, I changed it. I'm sorry. Your problem, I changed it for next year. It actually, yours said 10 feet. So when you plug a 10 in for x, so you get y equals negative 0.01, 10 minus 10 squared plus 10. A lot of you had difficulties with this. 10 minus 10 is 0. Squared is 0. Times negative 0.1 is also 0. So this should be 10 feet. So it's 10 feet off the ground. That's why I changed this problem for next year, because I didn't want 10s all over the place. So I'm sorry that it came out that way. It's a little bit weird. I didn't anticipate that. So it's 10 feet off the ground. Letter B, what would the y value be when the ball's on the ground? If it's on the ground, it's 0 feet off the ground. So y would be 0. I'm sorry, x would be 0. No, on the ground. Yes, y would be 0. So if y is 0, write the equation, but don't solve it. Again, you don't know how to do it. So you would write 0 equals negative 0.01 x minus 10 squared plus x. Some of you had real difficulties discerning where you were. Make sure that you go back to the original equation. Some of you had troubles with that. I know the 10s were all over the place. I grant you that. Okay, now this was the fun question. If the goalpost is 10 feet off the ground and he is 90 feet away, will he make it? So the key is, and a lot of you figured this out, that you put the 90 in for the x. So you would say y equals negative 0.01, 90 minus 10 squared plus 90. Show your work for that on your corrections. Y should get you to 26. So that's 26 feet. And now you need to explain how you know whether or not he would make it. Some of you didn't answer the question. Some of you did not explain. Some of you said, yes, he'll make it. That doesn't explain your reasoning. So what I would suggest is, and the answer is yes, he does make it, because when he kicks the ball and it's gone 90 feet, it will be 26 feet high. Excuse me. So when it's 26 feet high, that's higher than the goalpost, which is 10 feet. So therefore, it will go over it. So that's the kind of explanation that you need to make. I know that I said that quickly. Go back and listen to it again if you need to. Make sure it makes sense. And then write an explanation that says that. I know that was a tricky one. But you did a great job with it. I was very pleased. So thanks for your work on this. I was really quite pleased with the work that you did on this test, my friends. For the most part, you really know what you're doing. Those of you that had difficulty, come see me, please, and we will do some corrections. Work on your aftermath. We'll make that due in another week or so, or maybe 2 weeks because of the holidays, and we'll take that at that time. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye.